So you will see in Bible commentary, we talk about the first missionary journey of Apostle Paul, the second missionary, the third, because they were missionaries. They were people sent with a mission. And the mission is to go into all the world and preach the gospel. So the calling of every believer is to be a missionary. We are sent into all the world as missionaries to preach the gospel, to proclaim the kingdom of God, to make disciples. So the 12 apostles of Jesus, they were the first missionary. So if you want to check that word in Latin that is used for apostle, it's actually missionary. So there are many people who say they are apostle today who are not fulfilling the role of a missionary. God calls us to be missionary Christian. It means we're a people sent with a mission. We're people sent on a course. Jesus in John 20 verse 21, he said, as the Father has sent me, so sent are you. So every believer is sent. And what is the assignment? To reach the gospel, to preach the gospel, to reach the world. If you check maybe Bible Concordance or check Google, a missionary is defined as one who reaches out to the world with the gospel across boundaries and culture. But if you understand properly that not every believer is going to cross boundaries and culture to take the gospel, but in our world, because when Jesus said make disciples of all nations in Matthew 28, the word nation there is the word ethnos. That's where we get the word ethnic or ethnicity from. It actually means people groups. So among us as missionary Christians, there will be people that God will send across boundaries and into certain cultures, certain ethnic groups, to bring the witness of the gospel to them. And there will be yet some, that many of us, that God expects that our mission field begins from our home, our neighborhood, our community, our places of work. You are a student on campus, you are a civil servant. That sphere of influence where God puts you is your mission field. And he expects you to be intentional about bringing the message of the gospel to your world. Paul said, I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. It is the power of God unto salvation. So we have to be intentional about bringing out the message of Christ. We are sent to tell the world that they do not need to perish because Jesus, the Son of God, has paid the price. You know, when we read the Bible, Matthew 28 verse 18 to 20 tells us about the Great Commission, right? We call that passage the Great Commission. But you see, when you go to Matthew chapter 22 from verse 37, captures what we call the Great Commandment, isn't it? So we have the Great Commission and the Great Commandment. And the Great Commission says, go and make disciples of all nations. But what does the Great Commandment say? It said, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind. Go on. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Verse 40. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. The first commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. The second commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. If a believer truly loves the Lord with all his heart, with all his mind, with all his soul, and you truly love your neighbor as yourself, you will fulfill the Great Commission. All right? The reason why you go out to fulfill the Great Commission is because you love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul. And it's also because you love your neighbor as yourself, so you do not want your neighbor to perish. So if you are truly fulfilling the Great Commandment, it will lead you to fulfill the Great Commission. If you truly love the Lord your God with the whole of your heart, with the whole of your mind, and you truly love your neighbor as yourself, you will not watch your neighbor perish. You know, I read a book many years ago, an atheist was speaking and he said, if there is truly a place called hellfire, where sinners burn for all eternity and they perish, as the Christians claim, if there's truly a place called hell, then even if the whole earth is full of broken bottles, he will crawl on his knees to save a soul. Do you understand his statement? What he's simply saying is that Christians are not living up to their claim. That if you truly claim that there is a place called hellfire, where people will perish, where sinners, souls who are lost will perish, then even if this whole earth were to be filled with broken bottles, he will crawl on his knees to save his soul. It means if there's truly a place called hell, why are Christians not living up to their claim and their conviction? See, if you truly do not believe that there's a place called hell, you may not generate enough passion for souls. If you truly do not believe that there's a place where soul will perish, where men will perish eternally, separated from God, if that is not a conviction in your heart, if that is not something that you bring into view when you think about God and what Jesus has done for humanity, you will not be passionate about souls. Because many of us as Christians, we do not live with the conviction that when a sinner dies, he goes to hell. And hell is a place where men will eternally burn. If that is truly in your heart, you will do everything possible to save a soul. Because when you save a soul, it's not just about enjoying life on earth. If it is enjoying life on this earth, let me tell you, there are more unbelievers that are wealthier than Christians that are enjoying life. If we think that all that Jesus brought us is about a good life on earth, there are many people who are not born again who have a better quality of life as human than you. All right? So if we reduce salvation and the gospel to be all about having bread and butter to eat, then there are people who do not need the gospel. They have more than enough bread and butter to eat. The provision of Christ in the gospel goes beyond meeting our material need. It is about the salvation of the souls of men. That there is a place where souls that are lost go to and they perish. They are damned for all eternity. If there's no reason for you to be passionate about soul winning, this is enough reason. That when a man dies without Christ, there is a place where he goes to, where his soul is tormented. There's a place where he perishes for all eternity. Because the way we preach the gospel, the way Christians live these days, is as if the consciousness of the life after has been eroded from our minds. Does God bless people and prosper people? Yes. But if that is all that is a driving force in our generation, that God can give you bread, God can give you a good house, God can give you a good job, God can bless you, and we do not think about the eternity of man, that it doesn't matter the wealth that a man has. When a man dies and closes his eyes and leaves this realm, whatever he owned in time is immaterial. That's why one of the best places I like to preach is funeral service. And I've had the opportunity to preach in a few. And I made sure I maximized that moment and converted that atmosphere into a crusade. The Bible says it is better to be in the house of mourning than to be in the house of feasts. Because when a wise man goes to the house of mourning, he would think, he will consider. He would think about his eternity. The way this man just died, you mean we will not see this person again? What happens to his soul? Where is he? So a wise man will think about his life. That's the best time to bring the message of conviction. So our generation preach to sinners. We preach to people as if there's nothing called hell. And unfortunately, it's a sad news to say, but unfortunately, there will be people that will pass through church and go to hell. Because when you want to mention hell in your sermon these days, people say you are judgmental. Oh, there is nobody that mentioned hell in the Bible like Jesus. Read the gospel. Jesus spoke about hell more than anybody. Can we take a snapshot? Mark chapter 10 verse 28. Because it said, when we preach the gospel, the people who do not believe, they are damned. So how will you watch people who are lost, who do not believe the gospel, go to hell? And it doesn't matter. Matthew 10 verse 28. Listen to what Jesus said from verse 26. He said, fear them not, therefore. There is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, and hid that shall not be known. What I tell you in darkness, speak ye in the light. And what ye hear in the ear, that preach ye upon the housetop. And fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Who is the person who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell? It's God. So somebody say, if God so loved the world, why did he prepare hell where some people's soul and body will be destroyed? Let me answer that. Go to the same Matthew chapter 25. Let's look at verse 41. When Jesus talked about the sheep and the goats, he said, then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepare for the devil and his angels. So you can see, hellfire was not prepared for man. Hellfire was prepared for the devil and his demons, his fallen angels. So God did not prepare hell for man. But anytime men reject the gospel of Jesus, it means they have fraternized with Satan and his demons, and the end place for Satan and his demons is hell. It said God will truly say to some people, depart from me, you are cursed, into everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. So Jesus is the one speaking that there will be some people on that day that will be sent away into hell, a place that is prepared for the devil and his angels. You read through the gospel, he will talk about a place of outer darkness where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. But you see, we live as Christians as if there's no such a place. When you hear of a person who is not born again and he dies, what comes to your mind? Do you truly sit down to think that this person is not born again? And if the gospel is true, it means this person has gone to hell. Do you think about that? Do you know of the thousands and maybe millions of people who go to hell every day or every week? We need to teach the gospel to remind ourselves that there's a greater cause. When people die, do you actually think about their eternity? Do you think of where they are? They are physically dead, separated from this world, but they are alive in the realm of the spirit. That there's actually a place called hell, just like there's heaven. Jesus said, what shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? What shall a man give in exchange for his soul? So the primary object of salvation is the souls of men.